Thrilled to welcome Sidharth. 2 years ago, in fact, somebody reminded me that Sidharth, you were on the first draft show with us on the 26th of September, it seems, in 2021.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's almost exactly to the day. So Devyani was the one who reminded me. Devyani, I think, is also here with us right now. So she had her notes from 2 years ago. So talk about.
Wow, a lot has changed in 2 years. I hope the notes will change too.
Yeah. Well, for one thing, you've got trial by fire under your belt. So, but
Yeah.
before we jump into that, and I'd really like to talk a lot about that for this FDC. But before that, I'd do the quick formal introduction. So many of you know Sidharth, but I'll give you a quick intro. Nonetheless, Sidharth has been working as a producer in the Indian entertainment industry for over 20 years. He founded Story Inc. in 2018, and it's now India's biggest book-to-screen adaptation company. Have set up more than 200 books across 50 plus production houses. And the Story Inc. represents over 250 authors and exclusively controls the screen rights for more than 500 books. In 2021, Sidharth founded a development and production company, the House of Talkies, which has a multi-format slate of film and series projects. And the first series commissioned by Netflix was Trial by Fire, which was launched on the 13th of January, 2023. So still very new, this year's show. The show is about two parents who fight for justice after the Upar cinema tragedy. So welcome aboard, Sidharth, and thanks. Always fabulous to have you. So let's start with Trial by Fire. So did that come out of a book, or was that something that was conceptualized as a screenplay?
Hi. Firstly, thank you for inviting me for this. It did come from a book. In fact, the parents, the mother and the father, they wrote an account of their struggle, which was published by Penguin. And the mother reached out to me a couple of years ago, almost like I would say 5 years ago.
Okay.
And I read the book. And then actually, it's a pretty interesting story because, when I read the book at that time, I just started storying. So my first instinctive urge was to just sell the rights to a producer.
Okay.
And that's what I'd done. And then I can talk more about it as we go through the session.
Sure.
But it was a pretty interesting reason how I kind of ended up producing the show. But yes, to answer you, it did come from a book, but it did involve a lot of life rights along with the book.
Okay.
Because the author and the subject were the same people. If a third party writes a book on an incident, they may not necessarily have the life rights of those people. It gets a little technical and, at the business level. In this case, the author and the person were the parents.
Right.
So the book rights and the life rights were combined.
Okay. So if it is not an autobiography, but a biography, things might have been different, you're saying. Okay. So tell us a little bit more about that. So you said that you first sold it to a producer and then you decided to produce it yourself.
So I didn't sell it. I kind of, finalized terms and a deal with the producer. A friend of mine, I just called him and said, there's this incident, this book, are you interested? He said, yeah, let's just do it. And he read the book, he liked it. I mean, it's not a story that nobody would not like.
Yeah.
It was pre-COVID. This is around 2018. And I just started storying. And then I was in Delhi for work.
Hello? I lost your audio there. Can you all hear Sidharth?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No? Now?
Yeah, now we
No.
can hear you.
Yep.
It had gone off.
Fine.
for a-
Okay, maybe
Yeah,
some technical issues. Yeah. So I had gone to Delhi for some other work, and I'd sent them the agreement a few days before. So when I was in Delhi, they said that they had some questions and on the clauses. I told them I'm in Delhi. I'll just come over and meet you. I'd not met them before. I went to their house and met the parents, and they were talking about, and then we started talking about the Upar incident and more insights and really their personal story sort of in person. And it was and I explained the clauses to them in 15 minutes and they were okay with it and said, we'll just sign it and give it to you. So they signed the agreement. I took the agreement in my hand and then we spent another 2-3 hours talking about life in general. And by the time I came back to Bombay the next day, I was thinking that, this is such an important story. It cannot just be treated like a story that can be adapted just like that. It needed much more. And I pondered about it for 2 days and then I called them, the parents, and I told them, you know what, if you don't mind, I would like to cancel this deal because while this is a good producer, is a friend of mine, but I feel the lens that they might use might be too commercial Bollywood. And I'm not sure if this is the lens for this kind of a story. And so let me find somebody else for you. And she said, you know, we also met you and we felt that, you know, we need to work with you. So whatever you feel, we trust you. So I called my friend and I told him I'll give you something else. And I gave him another story. And, you know, and I canceled that deal. And then I waited for a year to think what to do. I met a bunch of production houses and I couldn't really find the right fit. And I told them, you know, if you want me to do this, you have to just give me some time. I can't rush these things. You know, it's very important. And then after a year, it kind of came to a point that I felt that, you know, I'll have to get back to producing. I used to produce earlier. I'd taken a little break with Hotstar and Storying. And then I told her, you know, if you want me to do it, let me rethink about who's the right filmmaker, the right writer, the style about how to figure this out. And then I reached out to Netflix, and then at some point, Prashant Nair, the creator, director, then Endemol, the producing partners. And then I kind of put it all together in about the next 2 years. And then we shot it during COVID and then edits and finally release. So it was 5 year journey for me personally on this, a 25-year journey for the parents. But I just felt so responsible that I couldn't just give the story away. And it kind of, Trial of Fire was the reason I thought, you know, now I have to get back to producing. I cannot postpone it anymore. And I'm glad I did it because, you know, now we are deep in production and it's so much more fun.
Fabulous. Yeah. So I think it's a very responsible thing for you to have done to, you know, to decide to treat it with the sensitivity and the courtesy that it probably deserved. But you mentioned a very important thing there. So from 2018 to now 2023 is when it finally saw the light of day. So 4.5 years, right? 4.5 years was from the first conversation to the show actually getting aired. So how does so is that normal? I mean, is that the kind of patience you expect all of us to have with our work?
I would say if you look at shows like Jubilee, they've also probably spent 5-6 years in making it. So I would say the more difficult stories take time, right?
Right.
Something in terms of scale, if it's a Sanjay Bansal, you know, because writing, rewriting, collecting the right tribe is a process. Also, making a series is almost like making 2 or 3 films because of the sheer length of the material and the task at hand. I would say the shows that we are doing now, which we're producing, we've got 4 shows lined up for next year. On average, these shows have taken between 18 to 24 months by time the story to release. I would say 2 years is a good average. COVID happened, so it got delayed further. But if there's no COVID, all things fine, team in place. From idea to release, 2 years is a good time for a series.
Okay.
And I would say another 18, 24 months for a film too.
Okay. And so, you know, most of us are not from the film world. I think I can safely say that for all of us. So can you help us by just walking us through the high level process? So when we come to you, what are we really talking about? When an author approaches you with a book, what is that stage called? And then what is the stages beyond that? And also my next question is going to be about probability. But first, if you can walk us through these stages, it will be helpful. So I know, for example, what you do is you option a book, right? And an optioning a book is for a certain period of time. So assume that we know nothing, and then, you know, start to walk us through that process. I think that would be great. That would be really helpful.
Right. So see, the probability is always very low in this business because it's a very premium content business.
Right.
It's got, you know, gatekeepers.
Yeah.
If you look at the macro business, right, there are just 6-7 large TV channels who run their platforms.
Right.
You've got 2-3 streaming platforms like Netflix, Amazon, who are not TV networks. And then you've got another 4-5-6 studios, which are film studios like say Viacom 18, Sony Pictures, Fox Films. And then you have, so let's call these studios, these are big financiers and distributors. I'm talking about Hindi.
Right.
In the regional and the South region, it's more, there are fewer corporates. So the independent large producer ecosystem is still very, very, you know, active.
Right.
But in Hindi, it's kind of reducing because of corporates coming in. And you've got these, I would say, 10 odd studios,
Okay.
right? And then you've got the 10, 15 odd large production houses like a Dharma, Excel, Virus. So so let's understand that there are largely the whole ecosystem of large content that comes out is between 25 to 40 players in Hindi.
Okay.
And nationally, I would say about 100 players.
Okay.
So for any story or a book to be optioned and then go through the drill of conversion into scripts, conversion into attaching talent, getting the financing, production, post-production, distribution, release, has to ultimately go through the funnel of these players.
Right.
Right. And these players also, like, directors are producers, actors are producers. So Shah Rukh Khan is a producer and actor. So the ecosystem is very, very close knit.
Right.
And if none of the active 25, 50 players are able to find a way to take your story to screen, or don't have the confidence or the faith or the resources to put it right in that project, then the chances of it happening are very, very minimal.
Right.
So the biggest challenge I feel, when somebody comes to me, is for me to assess.
Your sound went off again. Your sound went off again, Sidharth.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay, I think it's the internet playing tricks. 5G. Okay, cool.
We
Can I
lost
continue?
biggest
Yeah.
challenge. We lost your biggest
Yeah.
challenge, and it all went black.
Yeah. So the biggest challenge, right, apart from internet, is making sure that any of these key players, they need to be emotionally vested into it. It can also be a commercial decision, but unless they are like, they don't have the faith from inside, they might just option a book. So corporates will option lots of books. For them, it's a book. Then, some executive will change the job. He'll go with somebody else will come in. He'll say, I don't like this. I don't like. So it's keeps shifting. Stability comes from family run producers or, directors who are kind of, say, if Ashutosh Gowarikar will like a story, he could spend years trying to figure it out, and, he'll keep giving it his effort. But then the challenge comes is the options are very limited period. The author wants to block his story only for a bit, and then they want results. And in our industry, for example, for me, sitting on a story for 2, 3, 4 years is normal. It's not abnormal. In the last 20 years, we've developed, we are, developing a film, which I had the first draft of the screenplay written 12 years ago. I still have the rights because I'd paid for it then. So we are still, after 12 years, I've revived the story because sometimes stories are not relevant to a certain time period, but then it becomes relevant later. If you look at this film that just came on Netflix, Jaane Ja, is it Jaane Ja with Kareena Kapoor, right? That film is an official adaptation of the Japanese novel, right? The Devotion of Suspect X. Now, Hindi Drishyam was a remake of a Malayalam Drishyam, I think. And the Malayalam Drishyam was inspired from the same book. But they had never taken the rights, I think. That's what I had heard. And because of that, whoever had the book rights had to wait for a couple of years to come back with the same story, which is the closer to the book adaptation, because they didn't want to change too much because they had the rights. So these things, kind of cause delays. So the big challenge always is to find a story that will stand the test of time. And I explained, to the author that, they need to have patience. They need to make sure that, there is enough room for trial and error. And, we may end up with producers who have the intention but not the resources. So sometimes you have to take those, instinctive calls on how to find the right home. Once we find the right home, then comes the paperwork, the commercial conversation of an option agreement which is bound by time. Monies are mentioned. What happens if the rights expire? And then all of those things will follow. But if you don't find the right home, everything else is useless. And finding the right home, like I said, there are only 25 good homes in the city for any story. Right. So there are too many stories and there are fewer homes and fewer takers. So the problem is now reversed compared to what it was when I started storying in 2018. 2018, there were lots of producers pre-COVID. very few stories. Last 5 years, it's now turned around.
So, so if you were to talk about the stages of a story or a book or an idea, going from idea to a show or a movie.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about? What are those stages? The first is that you
Okay.
have your book gets optioned.
Yes.
So tell
First
us
is the paper.
what
So
that means. What does it mean for a
Okay.
book getting optioned? Yeah.
Okay. So the option agreement basically broadly is that the producer will fix that, this is the purchase price of your story rights. Let's assume the agreed price is say rupees 10 lakhs.
Okay.
Now we can negotiate anything between 10 to 20% of that as a signing amount of say 2 lakhs is the signing amount. Now 2 lakhs is the option fee. The producer will pay you 2 lakhs upfront when you sign the option agreement. The price of 10 lakhs is fixed for the author. And the period, say, is 12 to 24 months, what one can negotiate. After COVID has become 2 years now standard. So the producer
Okay.
now has the option to pay the balance 8 lakhs anytime in the 2 years, whenever he feels the project is happening, and take the rights. If within the 2 years he does not pay the balance 8 lakhs, his 2 lakhs are forfeited by the author, that is non-refundable. And then the author is free to go to another producer and sell the rights. So the option is really an option that the producer buys from the author or the publisher to adapt it into a screenplay and to adapt it to a project and then go and pitch the project, get the project like attached with talent, get the financing, and then actually make it.
You are on
Sorry,
mute,
and from that
Sidharth.
optioning, then certain book ideas, not all, but some of them will move to the next stage.
Yeah. So now at the producer end, so once the option is gone to the producer, then the author has to just simply wait, go to a Himalayan resort and chill. The producer's work starts, right? And the producer will now, he has the book. He'll probably have a 2-3 page summary from the author. He'll have a synopsis and now he's going to sit. What's he going to do? He is now going to create an adapted 3 to 5 pager of the story. Because when you read the book, you'll figure some changes need to be made. The producer at his end could use his like in-house team if he has any. If not, he can go and hire a external writer, a screenplay writer, or a story writer who's already done film and television work. So he's going to get someone on board. He could even go to a filmmaker, like a director, and say, here, read the book, see if you like it. And basically between the producer, the screenwriter, and the director, they create a pitch for the adapted story. Like what will the adapted film or series story be, basis which is inspired or based upon the book. Then they will take that material and pitch it to studios, platforms, actors, and try and get some talent interest and studio interest. Once that process is successful, which in our terms you call green light of the project, that's when the financing flows, and then the producer will call the author and say, hello, come back from your Himalayan retreat. I have the money. I'm going to pay you the balance money. Exercise the option and the rights are money. So it's really the producer's job to really put all the elements in the team in place. And, it really is the most, because the producer might love something, see potential in something. But if he's not able to get the same interest from other players, the project will just go waste and the option will be wasted and his money will go down the drain.
So
You're
Sidharth,
on mute, I think.
yeah, which all of
Yeah.
these things have you been? You are a producer right now. You also are an agent, so you are finding the books, getting them option to, signing these deals. Have you also been a
Yeah.
script writer?
Yeah, so we co-write. I
Okay.
co-write personally also, and we have also our own in-house team of writers. Got 15 writers in-house.
Okay.
So we write, we co-write. We also develop Bibles for series or scripts of films with other partner producers.
Okay.
We also produce.
So have you
So
also
except
acted?
directing
वो
in
एक
house,
रह गया है, तो आपने खाली acting ही नहीं करी मतलब बाकी
वो
सब
अभी
कुछ
तो
पता
नहीं है. Hopefully वो नहीं करना पड़ेगा.
Okay, cool.
But
That's okay. So that really helps us, I think, with a with an understanding of the overall space. So if I were to ask you, let's say 10 books come to the producer, what's the chance of getting a green light? Is it like 1 out of 10? Is it 5 out of 10? What would you put that number at?
Let's ask what is the chance of getting an option first. So
Okay.
when we represent a book as an agency, we'll represent lots of books, right? But what we do is we don't really have a menu card system. Like a publisher will send you a catalog. कि मेरे पास ये है, choose कर लो. We do a lot of curation at our end. So if say a specific studio or a filmmaker will call me, I'll understand what's his career like, what should they make, what can they actually get finance in the market. So we ask all of those questions, we understand all of those things. Basis that, then we open a list of the material that we represent. From there, then we pick 2, 3, 4, 5 options, and then we share those with the producer director.
Okay.
And so the chances of a story getting optioned are obviously low because, like I said, there are probably just 20, 30 buyers in the market in Hindi.
Okay.
Who have experience and history of taking projects to the market. There are a lot of independents and newer players, so that's much more. But I would say with them, we don't know what will happen because they're also trying to find their own path. But with established, companies, at least we know that they will give it their best shot because they have the resources for it.
Fair enough.
So I have to give it to like Dharma or a Virus. They know what to do.
Right. So I'm seeing that there's already a lot of questions in the chat, and I don't want to stand between those and you. Yeah, but I have to ask you one last question, which is this particular case. Dibakar Banerjee had shot this film called Tees. So the whole movie got made, everything got done, and then Netflix has decided not to release it. How often does that happen? I think they put like millions of dollars into making the whole film. The whole film is made, and then it kind of got shelved. How?
So I don't know the answer for this specific why it is shelved, but I'll tell you this happens pretty often. What happens is sometimes the studio will greenlight something basis what they've read, and when it gets made, they feel it's not what they expected, or it's not fitting into their current content strategy. Sometimes they greenlight something 3 years ago. Now it's ready, but the content strategy is not working because the audience has changed, the environment has changed. Maybe competitively, as compared to something else, something similar has come out in the market.
Okay.
So sometimes they may take a call to kill a project to preserve their brand image in the market. And it's their money because they've paid for it.
Sure.
So they do that. Or they'll tell the producer that you buy it from us, sell it to somebody else.
But that's a real bummer for a creative person because it's like
it is. But it is. But it is a commercial business. So when a creative person comes into the commercial industry, these are things that we know. We are aware of these things. These are pitfalls, right?
Okay.
So it is how it is.
So before I move to all the questions, I do want to tell all of you that Sidharth is actually going to be at the Himalayan resort that he mentioned. So he'll be at the Himalayan Writing Retreat at the end of this month. He'll be spending 2 days doing a workshop on how to pitch your script, how to pitch your story. And it will be touching upon elements of how to write, but it will be the second day is entirely centered on how to try and sell your story idea. So if any of you is interested, if you can share the link in the group, that will be great. Now let's move to the first.
Third link I'd like to add, sorry, just to this. Yes, I want to add the third thing is that also I think, one is pitching, one is writing. The other thing is also, I think, finding a strategic career path for any creator. I think that's which I really stress upon creators is that, understanding of the industry is very important before you embark and spend months and years trying to pursue a career or build upon it. So I'd like to also include that as a very important thing in the 2 days, I'll spend at your retreat.
Lovely. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm going to learn so much. All right. Let me move to the first question. Priya, your question is, do you look at manuscripts if they don't come through an agent? So Sidharth is an agent. So you can answer the question, Sidharth, but yeah.
No, yeah. So we do that. No, so I think they mean literary agent. Yeah. So because we are not literary agents, they're screen agents. So sometimes authors have a literary agent and then the literary agent is not doing much in the screen world. So they want to reach out to us. So, earlier we had a very, very open submission platform. But we were getting so much of material, which was like not serious or like, so we have a submission process and you don't need an agent to come to us to answer that question directly. You can be anybody. If you have something interesting and valuable that you think it is valuable, you can follow the submission process we have on our website, and yeah, feel free to submit to us.
Cool. Chirag is just talking about a story which can withstand the test of time. That's a comment. Then Weber is saying, how often do the options expire without it resulting in a movie? Is it very common?
Very often. I think out of 10 options we'll do, I think 8 will expire. Because what happens is that it's just how it is. It's the nature of business. Sometimes we'll expire not because the story is bad or the project is not good, or the studio has found something better. See, everybody has limited bandwidth. So, like a studio will do 10 new shows in a year and they have 20 good things. So, we'll have to pick 10. So, some options will expire. But it's happened that like, options have expired, then they get re-optioned by another producer, and then it happens.
Right.
So, it's a time and luck and opportunity.
So it's a funnel, but probably
Yeah.
less control than you have in something like sales. It's a more a matter of fate also. Okay, cool. Next question is Ritu. She's saying +1 to Priya. And in addition, so what is the process? So Sidharth has already explained that. You can just apply, follow the process which is on the Story Inc. website. Subi has a question. One, can an Indian author give film rights if she has an Indian subcontinent rights, or the author would have to have worldwide rights?
So see, if you have only subcontinent rights, you're probably talking about the publishing rights.
Yeah.
Because the audiovisual rights, that is usually world rights. So for audiovisual, it will always be world rights because of streaming. You can't not stream in some countries anymore.
Right. So, okay. Then the second question she has is, does an author have to pitch her story to producer, or does the book publisher help for the pitching?
So we never take the help of the publisher at all, ever. Yeah. We don't even take the help of a literary agent, and we don't even need the author. Of the 250 book rights that have been optioned through our company, we have pitched all of them ourselves. So the author, they don't really have to do anything. So
that's what Sidharth does. Just so you understand, that's what Story Inc. does, is they will take your story idea, they will make it into a viable screen, pitch, a pitch for a show or a film, and then they will go and talk to the powers that be to try and convert that into a film or a show. So that's what Sidharth specializes in. That's not what a producer knows much about. And also a few literary agents know a little bit about it, like Anish, but most literary agents are also reasonably clueless about this world. Sidharth comes from the world of film. He doesn't come from the world of literature. So that's why he does what he does. So it's important to understand that. Okay, next question is from Devyani. Does a Hindi script a book have a better chance at succeeding, or can an English story do just as well?
It's language agnostic. So I'll tell you, there's one series that we start shooting in Feb for one of the largest platforms in the world, which we are producing. That's based on a self-published Hindi novel from Kindle, which we found. So the first-time writer, he wrote a novel in Hindi, put on Kindle. I found it 2 years ago, and now that's a series. It doesn't matter. Language is not required. But yeah, ideally, when you submit and you write summaries have to be in English because that's what everybody reads. But the book can be in a different language, and we'll find ways around it.
But given that, most literature, I mean, there is a much higher volume of English books than Hindi books that are coming out in publishing, right? Yeah. Just the volume of publishing. English is like probably, I don't know how many times, but 10 or 20 times the size of the Hindi book market. So just by dint of that fact, I would imagine a lot many more English books get made into shows, right? Although the shows are in English.
Honestly, I think there's probably regional publishing is pretty active. The numbers can be actually very high. I don't have that data, but I'll tell you something. Bombay is a very cosmopolitan city. Yeah. So in Bombay, everybody in the film world and TV world, OTT world, it has come from somewhere else. Somebody's come from Bangalore, Calcutta, Assam, and Delhi. So the language that they all understand in communication to evaluate material is English. That's why we look at English. It's easier to review by any person in the studio system. But if I live in Chennai making a Tamil film, then the Tamil producer's office, everybody can read Tamil comfortably. So it's just how it is.
Fair enough. And the other thing I have seen as a pattern is that a lot of the people who are getting into the writing, People like Divya Prakash Dubey, Anu Singh Chaudhary, now Nikhil Sachan, who's with us next weekend. All of these
Yeah.
people are legacy Hindi writers. So, the people who are working on the scripts beyond the idea stage, it's like book gets optioned, and then it becomes a show, right? So it's like this
Yeah.
large volume of books here, which are getting, which are going through this filter of people like you and the producer and everything, and then they start getting worked on again, and they get converted into shows. So that part of taking that idea and reconverting it into a show, a lot of that seems to be happening at the hands of Hindi writers. Is that correct? I mean, Vinita is probably an exception, but even Vinita Coelho, but even she worked on Jassi Jaisi Koi Nahi, which was a Hindi show, and she's very good in Hindi. She was at the retreat last month. So
it really depends on how much of adaptation one needs to do on material that's ready. If the author has so much of domain expertise or has written it in a way that it's almost there, then you would want the same person to work. Also, Vanita knows how to write screenplays. No,
Yeah.
She's a screenwriter. So in her case, it's different. She understands that. But it all depends on. I think it's very personal. What's the personal interest at that point of time? A lot of authors have turned to screenwriting in the last 2-3 years. They've self-taught themselves. They've read books. They've experimented. They've written some material and then rewriting it. So now they're well equipped to write the screen material of their own story. So it really depends, I think, person to person, project to project.
Okay. Kamal, I'm not sure I understand. What do you think a novel or a screenplay stand better chance to hit the screen earlier? Can you just rephrase that and put it in the group again? I'm not sure I understand the question. Jyoti's question is, does the author have a say in the script writing?
No. Legally, no. Legally, the producer will have all control. But most producers and filmmakers are very happy to get feedback from the author, if the author is willing. But they may necessarily not have to engage the author in the writing team. It's their choice.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's what I expected. The next question is from Chirag. He's saying, what do you say of a book which might say this book encapsulates everything? If the book already has all the elements, like the way the story is being told, the dialogues or the setting and everything. So then what does that change how you look at it, or does that really matter, or do you still redo the thing in any case?
Really depends on, because see, every writer says my book has all the elements. Right? I think it needs an objective eye and lens. So maybe it's true for some books, so that's great. But I'm saying there's no standard lens to look at these things. It's very subjective.
Okay. Next question. You've kind of touched upon this, but we can come back to it. What is the process of pitching a film script or a TV show to OTT platforms? Can you walk us through that? So it's a very specific question.
So what we do, so I'll tell you what we do. We don't really go and pitch to OTT platforms directly if it's a story. If it's also OTT platforms prefer if we go to them with packaged projects. So they want a project, means they want a story. They probably want a screenplay or a pilot episode written. A director, attached who says, I will direct it, his vision, some sense of what will be the budget, what is the vision of the producer on execution, what kind of actors can they bring to the table. All of that together becomes a project, and then we take the project to the platform. I don't take a book to the platform. I don't take a script to the platform. And a book and a script usually will take to a production house, where they will package it and then go to the platform. I mean, people do approach the platforms directly, but I feel it doesn't really, the chances of them giving it attention are very, very minimal. Yeah.
The next question is a good one. She's saying, based on your experience, are there, this is Smita, are there some book genres or story formats which have a better probability of getting option vis-a-vis the rest? Is there a particular genre or story format which is more likely to get option?
Well, there are trends and phases. Like, for example, because the cinemas was shut and the streaming companies became very popular in 2020, everybody wanted to pick genres that work for episodic stories. So then thrillers, mysteries came to the fore. Now that cinema is back, maybe family dramas will come back, maybe love stories will come back, action comedy. So I think these are phases. There's no set pattern. Also, please keep in mind, when we see something and we think it's a trend, we have to please remember that this was written 3 years ago. So as a creator producer, we always need to be 2 years ahead of the curve. So I have to today figure what will be exciting for the audience 2 years from now, not now, right? So it's a lot of instinct and research that goes into this from the platform side. And from our side as creators, it's largely instinct that we use.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful because I was also thinking that your own show was non-fiction. It was based on a memoir. And I think that's kind of unusual, right? That's not that common.
Yeah, it was not that common at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, now people want to make real stories.
Okay.
They're more in vogue.
Utkarsh has a question here. Hi, Sidharth. Could you elaborate more on the mindset career path for an author screenwriter that you mentioned earlier?
Mindset, career path in general. I mean, well, I think there are two kinds of authors, right? One is a writer who has a day job and writes on weekends and after work, which a lot of, like authors that we have, they have day jobs.
Sure.
Then there are, like in Bombay, most of the writers who come to Bombay and pick writing as a career. For them, writing is a full-time job. So, if you really want a career as a screenwriter, you have to come to Bombay, or if you want to focus on the Tamil industry, go to Chennai, Bengali, go to Calcutta. I'm just saying it needs a couple of years it takes for you to write a bunch of material that people start valuing. So that time of investing in yourself and taking care of yourself financially, mentally, emotionally is very important. So it's a very rough and a tough career. So not everybody can do this full time, right? In terms of being an author, that you can do part time. So I think there you can afford to be a little more, take your own time. But the screen business, the premium content business is time is money, and it's very very it's exacting. As a writer, you have to keep writing, rewriting. It's you need to have that mind space to go through that word which you call struggle. I don't call it struggle. It's a lot of hard work and rigor. And that hard work and rigor and the patience to wait to get your due and to have that emotional strength along with having the skill and the creative ability. So it's a very unique mindset if you want to build a full-time career. But as a part-time career, I think, then you should just write and see where it takes you. Follow it. But it's important to find your own unique voice in whatever you write. For example, people who are very good at writing books, I tell them, don't write your books like films. Write your books like books. Do what you do really well.
Right. Right. And I think that crossover happens. Like we were interviewing Anand Neelkantan last FDC, and he's a writer, but he's also written like so many screenplays that I read his book Vanar, and it felt like I was reading a screenplay. Because there are beats, and there is like at the end of every chapter you're hooked again. And I finished the book in like 4 or 5 days. It was like binge watching the series. It was like that. It was like
because he's also a screenwriter, no? So he's got enough years of writing it. And in fact, we sold the rights of that book.
Oh, okay.
Very, very compelling.
Right. Yeah, it's a fascinating.
We represent Anand also.
Okay, and it's a very interesting take on the whole Ramayana and Sugriv Bali, and Lord Ram is actually almost made out to be the villain in that book. So you should check it out if you haven't read it, because it's quite a trip. All right. Next question: is it better to pitch the screenplay or the synopsis summary will do? Mayank's question.
So first, we always need the summary synopsis. And what you can do is you can always submit the first act of your screenplay, first 15-20 pages, which are really most critical. If your summary works and we read the first 15 pages, we'll know as professionals, whether there is potential in it or not.
Okay. This is a lovely direct question from Karthik. He's saying if somebody wants to join the team of writers at Story Inc., how do you do that?
So we have a talent division where we also represent new and emerging writers, screenwriters primarily. That's one. Currently, we're not hiring, but always reach out to us. There's something we think there's a fit. I know.
Okay. So Saurabh has the next question. How do you pick a book which is worth pitching? So you've sort of answered earlier, but still, if you want to give it a shot.
I think, because I'm doing this since 15-20 years now, it's a lot of instinct and largely driven from the business of film and cinema and what the business needs. So there's no formula for it. Even I don't know. I might pick something today, and then after a week, I feel, maybe it won't work right now for trade, because we pick really thinking trade first, then consumer.
Right. Fair enough. Okay. Next question is, so you've already sort of answered this, but the question is, could you touch upon career options for screenwriters? How does a beginner go about finding screenwriting job opportunities?
I would say it really helps if you do some kind of a legit course that the industry feels is a good place to study from. Not too many of those. And I think saving enough money by doing something first and then try and spend 2 years in Bombay interning with companies where they do writing. You will not get a paying job. No, you'll get paid, but not a very high paying job initially. So finding first resources to sustain yourself in Bombay and then working and showing your work. I think that's the right way to really have a practical path. So like interning at the right place really opens a lot of doors and opportunities.
Right. So you enter typically as a writing room member in a writing room somewhere, and then slowly
Writing
you work
room
your-
or writing assistant or a reader. Like
Right.
you can read and give feedback, and then you'll start meeting people who like your feedback or what you think of it. See,
Right.
people have to start understanding the way you think, and then feel that your way of thinking is useful to them. And then the ecosystem will start rewarding you by taking you into the ecosystem.
Right.
But you have to show what you can do.
But there was one thing which I noticed, which was very interesting, whether it was Anu or it was Vinita. It seems to be a highly, highly collaborative process, which was a refreshing change from the way the world that authors live in.
Yeah,
We live in our
the
own
traditional,
little
yes.
box, and we are, closed, and we are like, हमको मेरे को ये करना है. यहाँ पे हम का बहुत कम concept होता है. In the world of screenwriting, it seems to be entirely everybody's thinking team, everybody's thinking group. It's not solo at all.
We don't do any solo writing in our company. Everything that we write is in groups of 3s and 5s.
Right.
And it is the most collaborative creative medium in general, filmmaking.
Right.
We have 200 people on set to make something.
Right. Awesome. All right. Then there's another direct question saying, how do you make money? Who pays the movie agents? So who pays Sidharth?
So we largely do the pitching for free because I feel I'm committed to expanding the ecosystem. If a deal happens, we'll take some fee from the author and some fee from the producer. But honestly, that doesn't like run Storying. Storying is run with what I make as a producer, and we kind of try and subsidize what we do at the story.
All right, great. Next, Kamal Kant has rephrased his question. So he's saying, which one has a shorter journey from submission to selection for the making of a film? Is a novel a better way to get a deal or a screenplay directly? Screenplay.
Always, yeah.
All right, cool. Vidya says, I've been told it's necessary to copyright scripts before showing it to anyone. What's your take on that?
So copyright is not required, but if you can be a member of the Writers Association and just register your script, that doesn't mean that you're the copyright owner. Copyright is an expensive process, but at least it will show proof that on that date you had written this story. So if there's a dispute tomorrow, at least you've got some emails to show. Always share material on email. Always keep record of communication. I think that's the best way. If somebody comes to us, we tell them that, please register your material. So at least there's some proof that on this date, it was your idea.
Right. Okay.
And concepts don't have copyright. So please make sure that you have enough plot and character to say it's yours.
Okay. Then next question from Niharika. She's saying, how crucial is it to have comedy as part of the writing, since everywhere nowadays there's demand for humor? Does that reduce the chances of an emotional, sensitive, or serious subject?
Well, see, we are, like India is a very entertainment-focused audience in general. Indian audiences don't want to go and watch a very serious film, but they'll also go and watch a Gadar and they'll find entertainment different ways and different things.
Right.
So I think you need to be, it's not like dramas don't get made, but yeah, it's always tough to make something that the general audience won't find very, very exciting or entertaining. I mean, Trial of Fire is not exciting nor entertaining, right? So it's very serious drama.
Okay.
So it's difficult to make shows like Trial of Fire.
All right, great. Thanks. Last question, I think. So Chirag has a question saying, which book has impacted you a lot in a good way, but never saw the light of the funnel or never was selected or, never got made into anything? Has that happened?
Several books and stories which I like don't get made because I feel there's not the time for it, or we don't have the, for example, a lot of fantasy material that we read from mythology. The budgets are so high, it can't get made right now. So we wait. I mean, I am holding on to a book rights of a dear author friend of mine since 9 years now. And he and I are waiting. I've told him just wait. When the right time comes, when we get the right budget, we'll make this happen. So I don't give up if I feel there is potential. But yeah, it's always tough. I mean, all the stuff that I read in the fantasy mythology space is expensive to make, so it's tough. Science fiction is tough.
Sure. Yeah, and you don't see much science fiction. I mean, now thrillers seem to be on the up, right? With the Charlie Chopra kind of thing happening, whodunits.
I don't think that's worked at all. So, so I feel a story well told to an average audience where they find it interesting to spend their time watching it. That works. So, it's very difficult to predict what will work. So,
Right.
it is how it is. So, we should not worry about, genres, I feel, at this stage, at early
Right.
stages of
Right.
writing material. But you have to be aware, right?
Yeah. So there is also this divide in the literary world and also in the theater world, right? Of popular cinema and award-winning stuff. So the stuff that wins awards doesn't always get lots of eyeballs and make lots of money, and vice versa. So what is your view now? Is that still true for the commercial world, for the world of shows and movies? Like,
if you
like I'm
want.
thinking of, sorry, a particular case like Made in Heaven. Now that's getting nominated here and there. I don't know how successful or otherwise it's been in terms of eyeballs. So just wondering about that.
The eyeballs are also very, very subjective, right? If there are platforms like Netflix, Amazon, if they have those many, Indian subscribers, then even like a decent viewership is good for them.
Right.
But if you go to Hotstar, maybe those numbers are not enough.
Right.
Because there's a large amount of catch-up TV there, which will not watch a show in English.
Right.
So I think it's very subjective, and that's great because not everything has to have too many eyeballs.
Correct.
I think so that's why I feel it's very important to understand the business that we are in and the players in the business ecosystem, and then find the right story for them. So if I have to go to, say, Netflix, Amazon, I'm going to pick something which need not be the most commercial story. But if I go to Hotstar, then I'll find something very commercial. So different things can still work in different ecosystems. You just need to understand how those ecosystems operate and what makes them work.
Okay, cool.
Number is not always the only measure.
Right. Yeah. There's another question from Shobit. He's saying, what number of with the number of non-fictions or docu-series coming up these days, particularly on Netflix, what are the prospects of non-fictions getting attention in the Indian entertainment industry?
It's still, upcoming. It's not the most, docus are not the most sought after. I don't have too many studios saying, come to me with a documentary. But I think the market, which was really tiny earlier, is now opening up really well. So the future is bright. And again, you have to be sharper because there are so many people wanting to now make documentaries and submit documentary ideas. So I think we always need that those standout ideas. But if there's something standout, I'm sure we get big.
But a documentary would be very different from, let's say, a biopic, right?
Yeah.
So biopics
like House of Secrets.
Yeah,
but in biopics, what happens is that it's also in public domain story. I don't really need always the rights to make a biopic if it's in public domain.
Okay.
So you also need to find ways to make it more specific to your insights in it.
Okay. Vrinda has a question. Do short stories also get optioned for short films or anthology films? Are they pitched the same way as a novel?
We don't really get inquiries for them. So it's not the most sought after format.
Okay. All right.
We've tried, but haven't gotten enough success.
Okay. Then the next question is from Karthik. He's saying, how do showmakers get paid by platforms? Is it on the basis of how many people are viewing, or are they paid upfront because the show is aired before the show is aired? How does that work?
So by showmaker, I mean they're like directors and producers. I mean, there's a term called showrunner, but showrunner is more like an executive producer or a creative producer. But in general, if it's a platform that commissions a show, so they will pay you in advance and fund the show.
Okay.
If it's something that you're making with your own money and taking to YouTube, then it's success dependent.
Okay.
If you will get views, you will get the money, otherwise you won't, right? So it really depends on is it commissioned or you're making it with your own money and trying to sell it.
Vaibhav has a lovely question. He's saying, since you mentioned you plan 2 to 3 years ahead, can you tell us what will be successful 3 years from now? That's a great question.
What will be successful 3 years from now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so the answer to this is this, that I think a good story works in every year. So if it has something unique, right, to tell, it will work. If it's a new high concept idea, high concept ideas always work. Or a good thriller where you really thrill the audience, no matter which year you will release it, it'll work. You take any mystery of Agatha and you like adapt it in a way that it seems that you can never guess the killer, right? It'll always work. So I feel time period is not the problem. It's the quality of storytelling, right? And the skill of storytelling. That's important. So after 3 years, you might be a bad storyteller. With the greatest of story, you'll make a shit show out of it.
Right.
So it really is your skill. No? Skill needs to get upgraded in 3 years.
Okay. Vidya has a question, and that's an interesting question actually. So, are stories or series for children handled any different from what has been discussed so far?
The market for content specifically aimed for children is very, very small in our country because a lot of children generally are very language agnostic and they watch a lot of foreign children's content dubbed in local languages, which comes at a very low cost on television and YouTube. So there's no need for the producer or studio to spend a lot of money in making Indian content for children because children are pretty smart. They get storytelling better than adults.
Right.
And also after a certain age in India, children watch what we watch.
Yeah.
So that market is getting very, very, fungible. So it's kind of, I think we'll keep struggling a bit for children's content specifically at higher values.
Which is a little tragic because I think there's so many great kid stories in India, but I guess Shin Chan and all of that stuff just gets dubbed and comes into India, and then my kids also
Also,
watch.
YouTube has so much of content for children.
True. And Wednesday now. Okay, can we approach storying with a ready script? Is a question from Niharika.
Yeah, we accept all kind of submission. If you go a submission link, whether it's a script or a film or a story.
Cool. All right. So that's the last of the questions, and we're almost done with time. Also, we have 4 minutes. If anybody has a last question, you can pop it in now. Otherwise, Sidharth will be at the retreat from the 27th to the 30th, and so you can get 3 full days with the man himself, and we can chat about stuff. So, of course, during the day we'll do the sessions, but otherwise we're having breakfast and we are sitting and going for walks and having samosas, and in the evening, having a drink together. So if you want to come over, plan for that.
It'll be fun actually.
And it'll be great. Looking forward to it. We had Jerry last week, and Jerry Pinto was there last weekend, and it was amazing. Guys, just something else. So looking forward to that. So okay, we'll wrap up for today. We don't have to talk about the tracker because it's the first of the month. So tracker mein kya baat karenge? I explained it to all of you yesterday already. For those of you who didn't, or those who are new, there is a word count tracker. You should go and populate it every day and write every day. That's basically what we said. 30 minutes in one. And okay, so Kamal has popped in another question. I'll read that out. Do you look at the market or social message? The social message when you select a story between the market and a social message.
The best way to give a social message is that the audience should not know that you're giving the social message directly. They should feel it. And the best example always is 3 Idiots by Rajkumar Hirani or Munna Bhai. Those films are so beautifully commercial, yet have so much layered into them.
Yeah.
That you just understand how should you look at education in college when you watch that film. You have to outline it and say, bold me.
Yeah.
So I think that's the beauty of entertainment, right?
And I think it's the same for a book as well. If you want a person to really get a message out of their book, don't start with the moral gyan. Let the moral gyan actually just work its way through the story itself. So I'll close with one last question, which is Niharika's question, and then I will promise to stop. But her question is a good one, and I would love to get the answer.
I've got 5. I mean, if you need to spend
no,
5 more minutes, I mean, we can.
But the question is, what or who inspired you to start Story Inc? So tell us about that.
It was my own problem. I left Hotstar in 2017. And then I didn't want to be a traditional producer for a bit. I wanted to take a break from producing. Producing is a tough job, right? So I thought I want to do something simple. And I thought, I'll just maybe find a good story and I'll produce with a producer friend and I'll do a co-production kind of thing. So I reached out to one big talent agency in Bombay and I said, do you have any books that you represent? Can I look at something? They sent me catalogs of 3 publishers. I said, dude, you've sent me 100 stories. How do I pick? I don't have time to go through all of that. And that's when it occurred to me that, I feel someone in the industry has to do this. And because I had some spare time because I just left Hotstar and I had not started a company, I thought, let me do one thing. Before I get back to producing, let me just start a story company. And it was just a thought. And I uploaded the thought on Facebook 5 years ago. And I said, I'm starting a company called Story Inc. If you need a story or if you have any story, give it to me and I'll figure. Because I had a lot of producers reaching out to me. Because I used to earlier, 10 years ago, run a script development company. So in the industry, a lot of people reach out to me at all the times for stories and scripts in general. So I put that post, and by the end of the day, I got 3 people saying, "Oh, can you help me find a story? I need this for this, for this, for this." Then I reached out to some publishers, directly that can I look at your material, and they were not very cooperative. So then I just called a few authors that I'd heard of or that I had read, and they were very happy that I can represent them. So I repped maybe 2-3 authors. Arjun Rajgen, I remember, and bunch of other
Which book
cool
of
guys.
Arjun's did you do? Maharaja must.
The Maharaja,
Oh,
all of
nice.
that.
Okay.
And I
good
just recommended so I recommended those 3-4 books to 2-3 producer friends, and they bought the rights. I said, so I found 3 more, and 3 more, and that year I sold almost 50 book options the first year. And previously, 2 or 3 options would happen in a year in the whole industry.
Right.
So it just came out of this whole thing of, let me try and solve a problem because I like to read. I know producers. I can spot stories. So let me see if I can connect the dots.
Lovely.
It wasn't no grand plan, actually.
Okay. All right. Cool. Lovely. That's great to hear. So again, thanks again for your time, Sidharth. I'm looking forward to catching up with you in person. And thank you, everybody.
Likewise.
This has been a well-attended show. People have hung around right till the end because I think, the show was like a script. So, okay.
Wonderful.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you
We'll
all.
meet again on the 8th.
Thanks,
We'll
guys.
meet Nikhil Sachan. And then we'll talk about his work and his shows and stuff like that. Okay. Bye. Take care.
Superb. Bye, everyone.